Hello everyone and welcome to Very Cold Lasagna. I am your host, Dylan Lasagna, and this is episode number 262 of this icy yet spicy podcast for all your filthy casual takes on the world of sports for you casual fans out there like you and me. In this episode, it's WrestleMania season, baby. Or at least it should feel like it this time of year. Whether you're a casual or hardcore wrestling fan, it should feel like the most important time of the year for all wrestling fans as we approach closer and closer to WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas. But it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it at all. So in this episode of the Very Cold Lasagna Podcast, I kind of did it last year around this time of year for the road to WrestleMania, and I might as well do it again. This little mini series that I'm kind of calling it now the Retro Road to WrestleMania, as we kick it off with a look at WrestleMania 2000 on its 25th anniversary. So we begin our Retro Road to WrestleMania as we get closer to WrestleMania 41 with a couple of looks at previous WrestleManias, as we kind of did in 2 episodes ago. We unofficially kicked it off with WrestleMania 31, and we officially kick it off here now that we're in the month of April with a look at WrestleMania 2000. Join me along in this retrospective of a few WrestleManias that we're going to be taking a look at in the next couple of episodes as we get closer and closer to, well, what should feel like a bigger event that is WrestleMania 41. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Make sure you follow Very Cold Lasagna on social media at Very Cold Lasagna on Twitter and Instagram. And for all my audio listeners out there, continue to listen to the podcast, whether it's on Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and rate and review the show. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. If you're not subscribed already, what are you waiting for? And leave a comment down below with your own takes on the topic at hand. This being your takes on the pay-per-view that we're going to be looking back on, which is WrestleMania 2000, aka WrestleMania 16, and whether you watching it for the first time, hearing about it for the first time, or you may have watched it in the past and are hearing it again from my perspective. So leave me your takes on WrestleMania 2000 if you're watching this on YouTube in the comments below. And as always, share this with your friends, share this with your neighbor, share this with whoever's around you, whether it's at work or school. Share the good, the bad, the ugly about this filthy casual podcast entitled Very Cold Lasagna. And then as we leave the month of March in the past, make sure to also look back on our 2024 NFL season team recap month, where we reviewed all 31 NFL teams and how they did this past NFL season, and what they're currently doing in the offseason as we speak to try and get better for 2025. So make sure you go and check out all the episodes regarding our season team recaps and all 31 teams as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft. So that being said, let's take a look now as we kick off our little mini series of WrestleMania retro reviews, starting with WrestleMania 2000, aka WrestleMania 16. The 16th annual WrestleMania took place on this date, April 2nd, 2000, hence the title WrestleMania 2000, to commemorate the new millennium, the new year, the 21st century. That's why Vince McMahon entitled it WrestleMania 2000. So this WrestleMania took place in Anaheim, California, at the Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim, which is now known as the Honda Center nowadays. So this was actually the second WrestleMania in 4 years that took place in that arena. That the first being WrestleMania 12, just 4 years ago in 1996. So not that too long ago. So for those that were always saying, "Oh, WrestleMania is always in New Orleans," and all that, I mean, that gap between WrestleMania 30 and 34, it's not the first time that happened. So there's always that 4-year gap between the one in Anaheim, between WrestleMania 12 and WrestleMania 2000. So just putting it out there. But anyway, in regards to back to this WrestleMania, This is the fourth time overall that a WrestleMania was held in California at that time, at that point, after WrestleMania 2, WrestleMania 7, and WrestleMania 12. So, yeah. I mean, California has been a hot spot for WrestleMania for the WWE. But, yeah, nowadays, I don't know. I don't know about that. Anyway, when it comes to this specific WrestleMania, it was notable for two particular wrestlers that were missing for the WWF at the time. Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker. Why exactly they were missing? Well, they were injured. They were injured at the time. The Undertaker missed time because of a groin injury, and then Stone Cold Steve Austin was out for most of the year of 2000 with recovering from a serious neck injury. But they were present for the WrestleMania Fan Access Convention. So as they played in that little video package during the event, so they were there present for WrestleMania weekend, but they didn't physically wrestle. So just a little note on that. So this specific WrestleMania has been debated amongst fans and analysts as one of the worst of all time due to the whole card being a lot of filler multi-man matches. And, looking back at this WrestleMania, and I've never personally watched it. I know there were a few wrestlers out there, like to modern day wrestlers, that were saying this is their favorite WrestleMania. There are a lot of mixed opinions about this WrestleMania. And, it made me intrigued of wanting to retroactively review this WrestleMania. Again, given that it's 25th anniversary, and as well as given that it had a very controversial main event and that ending. So, yeah, that made me intrigued of wanting to review this WrestleMania as a whole. So that being said, let's get into the match card itself. Let's get into the event itself. And it all started off with an opening tag team match involving the Big Boss Man and Bull Buchanan taking on the Godfather and D'Lo Brown. The storyline going into this match involved Big Boss Man contacting his old friend Bull Buchanan. Bull Buchanan, not many knew who he was at the time, but all we knew about Bull Buchanan, he had a checkered past with Big Boss Man, and they wanted to make a statement. They wanted to make an impact. So they went on to target the Godfather. They attacked him twice with some nightsticks and batons. And that led to the Godfather teaming up with D'Lo Brown to get some payback on Big Boss Man and Bull Buchanan to set up this tag team match at WrestleMania 2000. So when it comes to this match itself, it was okay. Most people will remember it for the entrance that the Godfather had. He had Ice-T. He had Ice-T perform Godfather's theme song, which it was a really nice entrance. You had Ice-T singing his theme song, and you had the Ho Train coming out. Unfortunately, it is edited out of Peacock for whatever reason. I guess it had to do with licensing issues, which I don't know why that's the case, but that's unfortunate. But I just didn't like the ending. I really didn't like the ending of this match because that cool ass entrance. And for how popular and red hot the Godfather was at the time, that cool ass entrance was wasted. It was all wasted because Vince McMahon booked Big Boss Man and Bull Buchanan to win this opening contest, like a thrown together tag team. I mean, yeah, the Godfather and D'Lo Brown were a thrown together tag team, but like for how popular the Godfather was with the crowd, and he also had Ice-T there, it was all wasted. And I don't know why they decided to go that direction. And yeah, the match itself, again, it was okay, but it was pretty clunky because you had the Godfather coming in early, even though he wasn't the legal man to attack both Boss Man or Buchanan, whoever was legal at the time during the match. But yeah, I'm not sure why they went that direction. So you had some early offense from D'Lo Brown, but the finish saw Boss and Bull Buchanan dominate the most of the match. Even with the hot tag from the Godfather, they finished off D'Lo Brown with the sidewalk slam and a diving leg drop combination. But I mean, the leg drop from Bull Buchanan was very nice. But yeah, the the bad guys won this match. I wasn't into the bad guys winning into this match at all. Like, yeah, you start off the night with this nice ass entrance, but then you end this match with Buchanan and Bossman chasing away the Ho train. That's not a good start in my book. So then you get into the second match, was even more clunkier and chaotic, and I don't know if I mean this in the best of ways, and that was the WWF Hardcore Title Match, and it was a hardcore battle royale, and there were a lot of participants in this one. Some of the notable ones included the champion Crash Holly and his cousin Hardcore Holly. Also in this match was Taz, Viscera, and representing the APA, Bradshaw and Farouk. So the story of this match involved Crash Holly beating Tess to win the Hardcore title with assistance from his cousin, Hardcore. And then this is where the well-known 24/7 rule was born during the storyline and leading up to this match at this WrestleMania. So, Crash Holly, he went on to state immediately after this match that he would defend the title anytime, anywhere, any day, as long as the referee was present 24/7. Hence, initiating and creating the 24/7 rule for the Hardcore title. And yeah, what a decision that was for Hardcore Holly. Not Hardcore Holly, Crash Holly. I keep getting them mixed up because they have the last name Holly. But anyway, Holly would be chased everywhere and every day by the participants that was going to be in this match. They would all come after him, even his own cousin. They all wanted a piece of the pie that was the Hardcore title. So to put this thing to rest, Crash Holly suggested a hardcore battle royale. And if everyone accepted, they'd have to give him a rest before WrestleMania. And his cousin, Hardcore, would accept on behalf of the other participants. So what exactly were the rules of this hardcore battle royale? Well, Tim White, the referee, explained it on the Sunday Night Heat pre-show going into this WrestleMania. So the rules were as follows. It had a 15-minute time limit. The 24/7 rule was in effect. It's seemingly, at least, it was in effect within that time limit, meaning unlimited title changes. The final wrestler with the last wrestler with the Hardcore title, once the clock ran zero, meant they were the official champion. So in essence, think of it like the championship scramble match from Unforgiven 2008, years later, minus the 5-minute intervals. And there was still an interim champion, but the title changes were pretty much official during the match. And there were more wrestlers than those championship scramble matches. And when you came to the actual match itself, there were about 13 total people in this match. But once the bell rang, yeah, this was a total mess. Like, this is a total mess, and I don't mean this in a good way. So some of the official title changes were, most of them involved Taz and Crash and Hardcore Holly. But Taz would get the first official title change, less than 30 seconds. It didn't even take like a full minute for the title to change. Like, Taz would win it first off of Crash Holly, and then you had Viscera immediately pinning Taz outside of the ring, like a full minute, and then you had 2 title changes. And then, yeah, this whole match was like basically everyone hitting each other in the head with like cookie sheets, trash can lids, steel chairs. Yeah, a lot of CTE involved, pal. And yeah, it was just ugly to look at. But yeah, Funaki also got the Hardcore title on a quadruple team pin on Viscera. And then Funaki tried to leave the arena with the Hardcore title, but title changes started to come fast and furious backstage before they came back to the arena. And then Taz would win back the Hardcore title by pinning some guy named Pete Gas. And for the rest of the way, yeah, this is where things started really becoming stupid. Because everyone just kept beating up on each other rather than go for Taz and the Hardcore title. And I was just thinking to myself, why is no one going after Taz? Like no one other than Crash and Hardcore Holly. Like, go after the man that has the Hardcore title. Hello, why is everyone just beating each other up? Like, you're all making yourselves look stupid. You're all making yourselves look like dumbasses. Like, I get it. It's a hardcore match, but, go after the one that has the title. So anyway, the finish saw Crash Holly reclaim the hardcore title at the 30-second warning. But Taz, he got the Taz mission in right afterwards. But Crash Holly would survive, and then Hardcore Holly hit both Crash and Taz with a candy jar, and then he pinned Holly with just a second to spare to win the hardcore title. But it didn't have a clean finish, because there was a little bit of controversy, because Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler were pointing out that Crash's shoulders were up, and I'm not sure if that was the intended finish. And I rewinded the tape as well, and Crash Holly did indeed kick out like right before the 3, or I don't know if it's after the 3, and he did have his shoulders up. But either way, look at this match. It lived up to its hardcore nature for sure, but yeah, it wasn't in the good way, because it was all over the place. The title, I thought the title could change hands when, you had, like, people could pin someone other than the champion, which wasn't the case, because people could only pin the champion, which is kind of stupid, in my opinion. And then, again, going back to those last few minutes, everyone was made to look like a damn idiot, except for Crash, Hardcore Holly, and Taz. Like, why was everyone just beating up on each other rather than going for the champion? Like, what the hell's wrong with everybody? In the finish, the finish made everyone look dumb as hell, and it was just a confusing finish overall. But they kind of rectified this the next night on Raw, because Hardcore Holly lost the title back to his cousin. So I guess it kind of fixed that. But when you look at this hardcore title match, yeah, it was not great. There's a lot of mess, shots to the head, and yeah, it didn't really live up to its hardcore. It lived up to its hardcore nature, just not in a good way. So when you look at how we were so far, 40 minutes into this WrestleMania, not exactly good. We're not exactly into a good start so far. And I'm not sure if it was going to get any better when we got into the third match, which involved TNA. And I'm not talking about that TNA. Tess and Albert going up against Al Snow and Steve Blackman, a.k.a. Head Cheese. So the story of this match was basically centered around Al Snow and Steve Blackman, because Al Snow was trying to give Steve Blackman some personality through a variety of means, whether it was Al Snow trying to set up Blackman for a blind date, giving him Blackman weird entrance music, and he even tried to make Steve Blackman milk a cow, trying to give Blackman go back to his roots of, I don't know what it was, a farmer or something. But all this just pissed off Steve Blackman even more. So while this was happening, while all these weird shenanigans were happening, you had Trish Stratus. Who was just coming into the WWF at the time, and where Trish Stratus' career would go up from there, future Hall of Famer. But anyway, Trish Stratus, who was relatively new to the WWF, she made her debut 2 weeks prior on Sunday Night Heat to scout Tess and Albert, who joined forces the next night on Raw to form TNA. Again, not the TNA that everyone was wanting. But anyway, Trish became their valet, and that was Trish's first role in the WWF /E. So Trish now, TNA, whatever. See, I'm getting mixed up. Anyway, they needed to make a statement, so they targeted Al Snow and Steve Blackman, which angered Snow to the point that he couldn't come up with anything to give Steve Blackman a gimmick for this match. But he had one more thing in mind, actually. And before this match started, Al Snow presented Steve Blackman Chester McCheeserton. So what exactly was Chester McCheeserton? It was basically this small man in a giant block of cheese. And then in the cheese costume was the man's butt cheeks cut out Like literally, his ass was hanging out of the cheese costume. And I'm like, what are we going with here? And I guess everyone was chanting, "Let's go cheese. Let's go cheese." Okay, I guess. So this match was also very clunky, but probably even worse than the opening match. It's like these teams had no chemistry with each other. And what was made even clunkier was the fact that the commentary was also having issues. Like Jim Ross, his headset got broken during this match, so that left Jerry Lawler having to do both play-by-play and color. But all Jerry could really do was fawn over Trish Stratus, which pretty much everyone was waiting for. Whenever the cameras cut to her and her, you know what, at the time. But anyway, so rather than, again, calling the action, Jerry Lawler was, calling for Trish. Yeah. So yeah, this match was clunky. Like I said, neither team had a true advantage, and neither person knew when to come in and out of the match, as well as, both teams were just like fighting each other for the sake of fighting each other. Like it was a tornado tag team match that the referee couldn't really gain control of. So I don't really have much else to say about this match because it was just a really big mess. But the finish saw TNA hit the double team finisher, which was probably the only good thing about this match, which was a military press slam from Prince Albert and this flying elbow drop from Tess to win this match. So yeah, TNA wins this match, and afterwards Al Snow and he brings in Chester McCheeserton to the ring, and Snow and C. Blackman did their tag team finisher on the cheese as Snow's apology to Blackman to cap off what was the worst match of the night so far. Really unfortunate. Like we're 3 matches in. We were 3 matches into this WrestleMania, and they were all really bad. Like this is a really bad start to this WrestleMania. Like I kid you not. Like the only salvaging thing was what came after it. Yeah, we got a little bit of the kitty cat backstage, and Jerry Lawler was drooling all over it for reasons. And when I mean kitty cat, oh man, like the kitty cat was all over the place. I'll let you all do some research on that kitty cat because I don't want to spoil that for you. But anyway, it's there. Just go look for it on the web. So anyway, we move on to our next match, and that was the WWF Tag Team Title Triangle Ladder Match. And the participants were the champions, the Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardy Boys. The story of this match involved pretty much all 3 teams intertwining with each other, but to go back even further, the Dudleys and the Hardys, they've been feuding with each other since the start of the year. And the Dudleys would later win the tag team titles from the New Age Outlaws at the No Way Out pay-per-view a month prior. But this goes back even further than the Dudleys and the Hardys feuding with each other, because Edge and Christian had also been going at it with the Hardys, like even further back prior to the start of 2000. Because they had been feuding over the services of manager Terry Runnels, and I believe it was $100,000. And then once they were done with that, they decided to have their own long mutual respect story. Pretty much, something that's been going on in modern wrestling nowadays. But at least with Edge and Christian and the Hardys, they did it better than what we're getting today. So they beat the Hardys at the same No Way Out pay-per-view to earn number 1 contendership after the Hardys manager, Terry Runnels, they turned on the Hardys. Yeah, she turned on the Hardys. So this was actually a ploy by Terry in her attempts to cause tension between Edge and Christian, which didn't work. So Edge and Christian teamed up with the Hardys to get revenge on Terry. So Terry actually would also cost Edge and Christian their title match versus the Dudleys. I know it sounds really, really convoluted, but there's a larger story at play, because now you would have the Dudleys later interrupt a Contenders Battle Royale So that led to Vince McMahon creating this triangle ladder match that we were going to get between these three teams. So now in the lead up to this match, the mutual respect that both the Hardys and Edge and Christian, it was basically slowly but surely getting thrown out the window as they began to fight amongst each other in interviews and cost each other matches as we got closer and closer to this WrestleMania. And man, I gotta say, I've seen bits and pieces of this ladder match, and I've seen, what was to follow with their next set of matches, mainly what was to come at SummerSlam and then next year's WrestleMania. But I've never seen, the first iteration with this set of matches between these three teams. And there's probably a lot of things that have to be discussed, but I broke it down into my highlight spots for this match. Like Jeff Hardy missing a 450 splash on Bubba Ray on a ladder, and he landed hard on that ladder. And then you had Bubba Ray Dudley hitting a senton like right after onto Jeff onto that ladder. And then there were some gnarly spots. There were some other gnarly spots, like Christian diving onto Devon and Matt from a ladder in the ring to the outside. And then you had Edge spearing Jeff, who was on the ladder. And that was like the prequel to what was to come the following year. And then you had the Hardys doing a leg drop, slash splash combo onto Bubba Ray from the top of a ladder. And then you had Christian and Matt Hardy getting pushed off a ladder and falling hard on the concrete floor on the outside, which probably hurt like hell. And then you had the Dudleys introducing tables after hitting a 3D on Edge and then Christian. And then, that was pretty much served the tease of what was to come for the next year between these three teams. And then you had the Dudleys putting the Hardys through those tables with Devon hitting a splash on Jeff and Matt eating a powerbomb from Bubba Ray. And then, Jeff hitting the Swanton. Probably the most famous shot of that match was Jeff hitting that Swanton off a 20-foot ladder on Bubba Ray through a table on the entranceway. And then you had the finishing shot of Edge pushing Matt Hardy off of that table ridge that the Dudley set up through another table that was laying in the ring, and that allowed Edge and Christian to win the WWF Tag Team titles. And man, what a match this was. And I know there's some people just purely look at this match, oh, this was just another spot fest. There's just a lot of chaotic spots and all that. But no, there was an actual larger story at play leading up to this match. And this is pretty much the saving grace. This is pretty much the saving grace of this WrestleMania so far into the show, because these three teams delivered a chaotic, classic match that would serve as the first of a year-long trilogy. This had a layered story going into it, in which they would go to any and all lengths to win the tag team titles. They did their spots. It was pretty gnarly, but they did it in a manner where it was timely, not just for shock. So they would go to any and all lengths to brutalize each other in this match, but again, in a very timely manner, in ways that they would push the distance. So this three-way rivalry would go to Edge and Christian, but there's going to be more things to come for these three teams in the next year. And this is a very, very great start to it. And so far into this WrestleMania, probably the only highlight of it by far. So moving on from that highlight, we go back to, unfortunately, another low light. And that was the cat fight between Terry Runnels and the Cat. The backstory of this match, there wasn't really much one. As Terry Runnels, as I mentioned with the Edge and Christian story and the Hardys, she underwent a heel turn at No Way Out, costing the Hardys their tag team title match. And the Cat got involved, trying to sympathize with her after Edge had speared Terry in response to her trying to split Edge up from Christian, so which failed. So Terry underwent this devilish heel turn, and Terry started, being a menace to the cat and calling her out for her lack of TV time. Yeah, pretty basic stuff, along with other antics that led to the involvement of Mae Young and the Fabulous Moolah, and that led to this feud and this match at Mania. And for whatever reason, Val Venus being appointed the special guest referee. But I guess it was Val Venus's thing at the time. I mean, which I'm not going to complain, to be honest with you. So the rules of this match were pretty simple. The first person to throw their opponent out of the ring would win the match. Pretty simple. It didn't have to be over the top rope. You just throw them out of the ring. So probably the only highlight of this match was the pre-match promo by Val Venus. And to pretty much sum it up, it was Val Venus letting the ladies know what he and WrestleMania had in common. And in contrast, while they were both the single largest extravaganza of all time, the Big Balboski comes every night. That's probably like the only highlight of this match. That deferring line between Val Venus and WrestleMania. I was like, okay, all right, Val Venus got me there. So the cat, in this match, she debuted a new blonde look because blondes have more fun, I guess. In contrast to the black-haired look we saw from the cat when we reviewed Armageddon 1999. And then the match happened. It was a match that happened. Both took turns kissing Val Venus to try and gain an advantage on him. And it seemed like the cat had the match won twice, mind you, when she threw Terry out of the ring. But every time that she threw Terry out of the ring, Mae Young was always inadvertently distracting Val Venus on both of those times when whatever she was doing on the apron with Val Venus. And then on the second time, she was kissing Val Venus when she chased the Fabulous Moolah in the ring. So that second distraction allowed the Fabulous Moolah to pull the cat out of the ring and put Terry back in, as Val was stupid enough to catch that and declare Terry the winner. And so to cap off this mess, Mae Young gave the Moolah the oldest Bronco Buster in history of our sport, and the cat tore off Terry's pantyhose as Val, he pretty much enjoyed what was going on. So yeah, the match was pretty much how you expected it to go. It was a match that happened. I mean, again, the only highlight of this match was the pre-match promo by Val Venus. And, well, let's just say we got our fill of the cat earlier in the pay-per-view. The kitty cat. You got to go look it up on the web. So our next matchup involved China and Too Cool taking on the Radicals, and representing the Radicals was Eddie Guerrero, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko. So the backstory of this match, there wasn't really much backstory, but there was a backstory, and that was Too Cool and the Radicals feuding with each other since the Royal Rumble. But then, once we got to No Way Out, they managed to catch the crossfire of Chris Jericho and China. So Chris Jericho actually managed to team up with Too Cool in a 6-person tag. But Eddie Guerrero, who was dealing with an elbow injury at the time, he kept interfering, and that led to China attacking him. So Eddie retaliated a week later by luring China into a trap by the Radicals, and that led to this match being official for WrestleMania. And in the lead up of this match, that became the main story. And that main story involved Eddie trying to woo China with this Latino heat charm, and even going as far to calling China his mamacita. But unfortunately, to no luck. But oh boy, we'll get there. We were going to get there eventually. So throughout this match, it was pretty obvious Eddie was still trying very hard to get his Latino heat onto China with a pre-match promo and all throughout this match. And every time that China would get tagged in and Eddie was there, Eddie would just run away Eddie would just run away to his partners. And honestly, that's what made this match so fun. You know, the story of Eddie impressing China only to run in fear whenever she had the chance to clock his ass. And once they managed to finally build that anticipation up for that to finally happen, the crowd was amped up. After almost I'd say the whole night outside of the triangle ladder match, yeah, there wasn't really much for the crowd to be into, but this finally got them back into it. The Anaheim crowd finally got back into it once China got her hands on Latino heat. So yeah, they built this up very well. Like the antics of Eddie and China was done very well in this match. So China once she got the hot tag, the crowd was very into it. And then China went through Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko, with some nice scoop slams, and then she dick punched both of them. And then she got some very solid offense on Eddie. Although I will say though that the only thing that failed her was her gear. Yeah, that gear was falling apart on her, unfortunately, which I think it played into a role of the finish being a little rushed. But other than that, I thought everything else was fine. Now, I don't want to discredit the other moments that happened in this match because I feel like everyone else played their role good as well. Especially Too Cold, because everyone was so red hot for Grandmaster Sexy and Scotty Too Hottie. Like they played their role to excellence as well. Like Grandmaster Sexy and China, for example, they hit this double team move on Eddie, and then Grandmaster got China to do his signature taunt, and then of course he had Scotty Too Hottie doing the worm, which was very popular back then on both Saturn and Malenko. And then going back to the finish, you saw it was the one that got the crowd really into it. China plowing through Malenko and Saturn before going at it with Eddie, reversing a powerbomb from him into her own, and then finishing off Latino Heat with the sleeper slam to win the match for her team. So this was a fun match. Probably the second highlight of the night out of how many lowlights have we gotten so far with this WrestleMania? So yeah, this is a match that highlighted Eddie and China's really fun antics, while also giving everyone else their proper shine as well. But more importantly, coming out of this match, it set the stage to where it would eventually lead to going out of this WrestleMania not too long after with the true Poppy and Mommy of the WWE. Sorry, modern day Mommy. So that started on the next night on Raw, very soon after, as the Latino Heat and the actual Mommy was soon to be born. Soon after. So moving on from that, we had the WWF Eurocontinental Champion Kurt Angle taking on Chris Jericho and Chris Benoit in a 2-fall match. So how exactly did that work? Well, we gotta rewind a little bit on how exactly we got here to this point. So Chris Jericho, he actually lost his Intercontinental title to European champion Kurt Angle at the previous month's No Way Out pay-per-view, and that made Angle a double champion, and that's why Angle dubbed himself the Eurocontinental champion. And that led to some, just funny antics from Kurt Angle, and that showed off his more funny side of him, which I appreciate the year of 2000 from Kurt Angle. And then leading up to this road to WrestleMania, Jericho failed multiple times to win the title back, thanks to Angle's odd alliance with legend Bob Backlund. The Radicals would also get involved with Jericho, as member Chris Benoit, he also wanted the Intercontinental title. And like I mentioned, Eddie Guerrero would have his storyline with China, who was Jericho's valet at the time. So all this would lead to this 2-fall match between the three at WrestleMania. All three of these men would be making their first ever WrestleMania appearance at the time. So when it comes to this match, how exactly was this going to work? Well, the first fall would be for the Intercontinental Championship, while the second fall would be for the European Championship. So, the odds were really stacked against Kurt Angle in this one. So for the match itself, I thought it was okay. I thought it was pretty frantic as expected, given that it is a triple threat match. I like the urgency of each of those men, breaking up each other's pins, trying to steal the other's pin after one hit a big move on the other. So I did appreciate the urgency. I just felt like, after like what was a fun 6-man tag, I felt like there wasn't really a lot. Like it was really kind of hard to recover from that match that just took place. But this is still a solid match. I still thought this was a solid match. But yeah, by this point in the show, there wasn't really a lot of standout moments other than those two matches. But again, this was pretty solid. So Angle was on the verge of keeping the Intercontinental title by making Jericho pass out with the crossface chicken wing. But Benoit stopped that, and he threw Angle into the crowd to prevent him from retaining the IC title. And Chris Benoit actually won the Intercontinental title with the flying headbutt on Jericho in the first fall. So we moved on to the second fall. It was more frantic than the first, and Benoit and Jericho each had a chance to win the European title from Kurt Angle in that second fall. Both of them each made the other tap out to their submission finishes, but there was a rep bump earlier when Jericho accidentally knocked out the referee. So no one, like the referee, didn't catch either one tapping out to the other's finishing move. So Angle also had a chance to keep that title by clocking Jericho with the European title. But when it got to close to the 3 count, Benoit pulled Jericho out of the ring, and then we got to the actual finish. Angle dodged a flying headbutt from Benoit, and Jericho immediately hit the lion salt on Benoit to win the European title, and that left Angle empty-handed, leaving his first WrestleMania with no titles. So, yeah, pretty much, I'd say solid match. But then when you get to the post-WrestleMania stuff for, at least for Jericho, and I'd say Kurt Angle would want to have some more success for the rest of for at least the next couple of months, winning King of the Ring and having a larger storylines. As for Chris Jericho, he would also have some larger storylines too, but then he would lose China as a valet because, well, bigger and better things were in store for China and a certain Latino heat right after this Mania. So then we move on to the second and final match of this particular WrestleMania, and that was a tag team match involving Kane and Rikishi taking on D-Generation X's X-Pac and Road Dogg. So this was a storyline that was pretty much brewing since, I'd say, the later half of 1999, where Kane was in this kind of relationship with what was Tori, but then Tori turned on Kane, and then X-Pac also had a partnership with Kane, but Kane also got turned on by X-Pac. So yeah, this culminated here in this matchup at WrestleMania, and at some point in time, Rikishi joined up with Kane for this tag team match. This matchup was pretty short, one in which was dominated by Kane and Rikishi, but the story was told of Kane finally getting his revenge once and for all on X-Pac, even though Kane pretty much dominated most of this rivalry that he and X-Pac had. So, yeah, Kane and Rikishi pretty much dominated X-Pac, Road Dogg, and then Tori, with Tori receiving the ultimate payback via a stink face from Rikishi, as Kane finished off X-Pac with the Tombstone Piledriver to win this relatively short match. And then post-match, you had Sky Duhati and Grandmaster Sexay, as well as the San Diego Chicken. Yeah, he's a mascot. Not a specific team, but I guess he's just the mascot for the city of San Diego. They all joined in for a post-match WrestleMania dance. Yeah, they did this dance. And then after the dance, Kane attacked the chicken because he thought it was Pete Rose, Baseball Hall of Famer. He thought Pete Rose was under the chicken suit, but then Pete Rose snuck in the ring to try and attack Kane again for the third straight year at the time. but Kane chokeslammed him again. Same result. Pete Rose was 0 for 3 in trying to attack Kane. And this time around, Rikishi gave Pete Rose the stink face to finish it off. So yeah, not much else to say here. But the payoff to what was kind of a long mid-card story between Kane and X-Pac, I'd say it was decent. At least it was finally done from there. They kind of dragged it along. And yeah, I was surprised it lasted that long too. So that's pretty much done from there. As we moved on to the main event of this it was a pretty convoluted WrestleMania. And that was the WWF champion, Triple H, defending his title against The Rock, Mick Foley, and The Big Show in a fatal 4-way elimination match. And this was just an ordinary fatal 4-way elimination match. It was a fatal 4-way elimination match where you had a McMahon in every corner. Yeah, that was pretty much the tagline for this WrestleMania. A McMahon in every corner. Why was that? Well, we have to trace it back to the start of the year 2000. Because, yeah, Triple H and Mick Foley feuding with each other. And then you had The Rock and The Big Show feuding with each other. And somehow, some way, these two feuds intertwined with one another at some point in time going into this WrestleMania. So, yeah, Triple H winning the WWF title from a then babyface Big Show on the first Raw of 2000 and would later defeat Mick Foley in both street fights and in Hell in a Cell matches at both the Royal Rumble and No Way Out pay-per-views, with the No Way Out match sending Mick Foley into retirement per the stipulation. Meanwhile, you have The Rock winning the Royal Rumble match by last eliminating the Big Show, who had turned heel going into that pay-per-view. But Big Show produced video footage that showed The Rock, he had his feet touch the floor first before Big Show's did. So that set up this number one contender match for No Way Out between Big Show and The Rock. And Big Show would win that match with help from Shane McMahon, who hadn't been seen since Armageddon 1999. And Big Show would take his WrestleMania title shot. So you think the main event would be set between the Big Show and Triple H, when it initially was supposed to be Triple H versus The Rock. And some people thought, oh, that was an easy layup. You could just done not Big Show, Triple H versus The Rock. But then they started to get a little convoluted from there when they decided to do a Triple H versus Big Show. But then they decided to get even more convoluted as the current Women's World Championship match right now. So you start the storyline where The Rock was determined by all means to get added into this WWF title match, even as going as far to put his career on the line in a match versus the Big Show a couple weeks after No Way Out. And during that match, with Shane as the special guest referee, Vince McMahon returns from his self-exile to help out The Rock and get into the title match, which makes it a triple threat. But Vince didn't want to wait for not No Way Out, WrestleMania. He didn't want to wait till WrestleMania to have that match happen. So he schedules that match the week after he returned. He booked the 3-way, and Triple H would win that, guaranteeing there would be no title defense for him at WrestleMania. But then you have the CEO, Linda McMahon, also return and inform Triple H that he'd defend the title at WrestleMania, not just only against the Big Show, not only against The Rock, but also against Mick Foley, who had been reinstated by Linda McMahon for one night only. And that would create this fatal 4-way elimination match where, tagline, a McMahon in every corner. So, had Mick Foley won this match, Linda announced that the title would be vacated, given that Foley would retire again after WrestleMania, and then a tournament would be crowned, would have began to crown a new champion at Backlash. So, for this tagline, McMahon in every corner 4-way, you had Mick Foley being represented by Linda, Big Show being represented by Shane, The Rock being represented by Vince, yeah, that was that was very suspicious in of itself. And then Triple H obviously being represented by Stephanie. So you had this very complicated, very fatal 4-way, and let's just get through the match itself, because it seemed solid at first. Big Show dominating the early portion of the match, but he was the first eliminated after being triple teamed, and then he gets hit with the steel chair by Mick Foley, and then getting rock bottom by The Rock, and then the next part of the match sees The Rock and Mick Foley double teaming Triple H for a good while, until The Rock accidentally hit Mick Foley with the ring bell that was meant for Triple H, and then Foley would get his payback on Rock, stopping the people's elbow with Mr. Sacco until Triple H low-blowed Mick Foley in the dick, making it a pure 3-way. And then you would suddenly see Mick Foley and Triple H teaming up on The Rock until Mick Foley missed the mark like by a full foot on an announce table elbow drop on Rocky. And Triple H had to save the spot, unfortunately, with his own elbow drop from the barricade through the announce table. So then you saw Triple H eliminate Mick Foley with 2 pedigrees, the last one being on a steel chair. And then, yeah, that left it with Triple H and The Rock being the last 2. But before leaving, Foley blasted Triple H with a 2x4 in barbed wire. And yeah, that left it to The Rock and Triple H to send it on home. Unfortunately, yeah, it dragged pretty long as they were fighting all over the ringside area, in the crowd, to prolong the stupid ending that we wound up getting, as Vince McMahon ended up attacking Triple H unprovoked for some reason, which was a red flag in of itself, and that led to Shane McMahon coming back out to sneak up on Vince and attack him and send him to the back bleeding after busting him open with a steel chair. And then you had Shane trying to hit The Rock, which Rock catapulted Triple H into Shane before hitting the rock bottom on the game. But there was, for some reason, he couldn't pin him for whatever reason. And then Shane recovered enough to hit The Rock with to try and hit The Rock with the chair, but out came Vince to send Shane out of the ring with a bunch of wussy slaps. And then he grabbed the chair to seemingly hit Triple H, only to hit The Rock. So yeah, Vince went back on his word of, not betraying The Rock. And yeah, he hit The Rock again with the chair, and Triple H pinned The Rock to keep the WWF title. And another fact for you, this is the first time at the time that a villain, won the WrestleMania main event. And yeah, not exactly the best way to do that. So, The Rock, after initially being helped to the back, he ran back to the ring in anger to attack the McMahons. He gave the people's elbow on Stephanie to pretty much put a closer to close out this absolute dud of a WrestleMania. Now, what are my thoughts on this main event? Having finally saw this WrestleMania, well, let's with the main event at least. I thought it was solid. I thought it was solid for most of the match, but the ending, what were they thinking with the ending? I mean, there are 2 things I can try to understand with it. I understand that you're trying to further legitimize Triple H as a main eventer, but he already was such by that point. With the way that he won the WWF title at SummerSlam several months prior, and then orchestrating one of the biggest heel tactics in WWF history with him marrying Stephanie in storyline and then later in real life at Armageddon. And then what more did he need to do? He already had the McMahon Helmsley faction. It's what more legitimizing as a main event heel did he need to do? It's him taking an L, it wouldn't have hurt him all that much. So not only that, you had The Rock. You had The Rock losing this match And the Vince was lucky enough that he was so popular that losing this match also didn't hurt him. But you look at it from a storyline perspective, he had gone through a whole year. The previous WrestleMania, he lost the title to Stone Cold. He got kicked out of the corporation. He pretty much rose to superstar, even more superstardom. He won the Royal Rumble 2 months prior. And yeah, he became the 1B to Stone Cold, as well as losing the following year to Stone Cold again. It's like, don't you think the best option would have give the title to The Rock rather than, do it at the next pay-per-view where it just felt like, oh, we messed up. Let's just give the title to The Rock now. No, you don't do that. you don't do that. Like, again, you're just the WWF and Vince were lucky that The Rock was so insanely popular with the fans that it didn't really hurt them in the long game. But it was still a stupid ending regardless. And not only that, Triple H's win was largely overshadowed by the McMahon family drama, and that included Vince turning heel again. So, yeah, while they managed to make something out of this dumb ending via a summer-long program that included The Rock winning the title weeks later at Backlash, it just felt more like a consolation prize more than anything. Because when you look at it, The Rock won the title weeks later at Backlash, but then he would drop it to Triple H at Judgment Day, where The Undertaker returned, and then The Rock would win it again at King of the Ring. And then he would have his longer title reign. It's like, don't you think the better option would have been The Rock just win it at WrestleMania to finally cap off the year he had? It makes no sense. But again, Vince was just very lucky that The Rock was talented, entertaining, and insanely popular enough to keep his momentum going. So yeah, in the end, Rock losing this WrestleMania, it didn't hurt him in the long game, but still, if it did, oh boy, it's just like, it would have been so bad. So overall, with this WrestleMania, it's not one of the worst. I mean, there was a lot of bad matches, but it's still a very bad one because there was a lot of bad fluff from the start. But there's still some positives, a couple of positives in this one, like the ladder match, the very notable ladder match, the 6-person tag that led to the Eddie and China stuff that we would get for most of the rest of the year, and then the two fall three-way match with Benoit, Angle, and Jericho. That was solid too. And then you had the main event. It was solid. But the route Vince went with the ending, it's still very stupid to this day. Electing to overemphasize the McMahon family drama, the McMahon in every corner crap, over Triple H's first Mania win as WWF champion, and him being the first villain to win to close out WrestleMania. Yeah, it was dumb. And the writing was clearly on the wall to have The Rock win it, to win the WWF title after the year in storyline, of course, that he had. So when you look at this WrestleMania to close out this retro review, other than that ladder match, that 6-person tag, there's not really one particular thing to go back and rewatch from this Mania, unless you're bold enough to see this main event. Or the naked kitty cat, of course. But yeah, let me know. Let me know what you thought about this WrestleMania. WrestleMania 2000, WrestleMania 16. Yeah, I really like to know your thoughts on it. Let's have a conversation about it in the comments on YouTube. Or, yeah, slide into the DMs on social media at Very Cold Lasagna. Because, yeah, this WrestleMania is an interesting case of not being one of the worst, but being very disappointing, given the fact that they were at the height of the Attitude Era, but it's not a particularly good WrestleMania. Like, this was their Super Bowl, and it was pretty bad. There's a lot of bad quality on this show. So, yeah, I'd like to know your thoughts on this WrestleMania in the comments below on YouTube, or send me a message with your takes at Very Cold Lasagna, where I'm at on Twitter, or Instagram. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode of the Very Cold Lasagna Podcast. I have been your host, Dylan Lasagna. Thank you for tuning into this episode number 262 of this icy yet spicy podcast as we close the lid on the Old Icebox for this WrestleMania 2000 retro review. And there will be a couple more WrestleMania retro reviews to come throughout this month of April as we get closer to this recent upcoming WrestleMania, being WrestleMania 41. So just stay tuned for that. But until then, keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. Until I see ya, when I see you in the next episode. Peace out.